As my daughter-in-law, Jessica, raised her glass to toast my retirement, her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and I saw her hand tremble almost imperceptibly as she brushed past my drink. My retirement party, celebrating the $23 million sale of my consulting firm, turned in an instant from a celebration to a crime scene. She tried to poison me. But when her own mother collapsed seconds later, clutching her throat after sipping from my switched glass, Jessica's carefully constructed world began to shatter. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The ballroom glittered. 40 years I'd spent building Wilson Consulting from a one-woman operation in a cramped rented office to a respected firm with international clients. Tonight was supposed to be the culmination, the handover, the graceful exit into a well-earned retirement. Friends, former colleagues, and family had gathered. My son, Michael, stood beside his wife, Jessica, looking every bit the successful heir, though the truth was far less flattering. Jessica, stunning in emerald silk, played the doting daughter-in-law to perfection. I felt a pang, as I often did, thinking of my late husband, Tom. He would have been so proud tonight. He'd been my rock, supporting my ambitions when few women dared to dream so big. His loss 5 years ago had left a void, but I'd poured my energy back into the company, into my family, Michael, Jessica, and my sweet granddaughter, Emma. The speeches were warm, flattering. Old partners shared anecdotes, clients praised my strategic mind. I felt a genuine warmth spread through me. This was it. Time to relax, travel, finally spend quality time with Emma, maybe even spoil myself a little. I'd earned it. My net worth, post-sale, was substantial, enough to ensure comfort for generations, though I'd always lived modestly, valuing hard work over flashy displays. Then came Jessica's turn. She floated to the microphone, radiating charm. To Sarah, she began, her voice smooth as velvet. An inspiration, a titan of industry, but more importantly, a wonderful mother and grandmother. She spoke of my dedication, my sacrifices. It all sounded so perfect, so loving. She walked back towards the head table, raising her glass higher. "Mum, your personal flute," she said, handing me a freshly poured glass while deftly moving my half-finished one aside. "Only the best for you tonight." It was the slight tremble in her hand, the fleeting shadow in her eyes, the almost imperceptible brush against my glass as she placed the new one down. Decades in negotiation had honed my instincts. I could read micro-expressions. Sense deception like a change in barometric pressure. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. My mind raced. Why switch the glasses? Why the tremor? Why the look? As Jessica turned back to the crowd, basking in the applause, her own mother, Helen, reached over from the adjacent seat. Helen, a kind woman I'd always liked, seemed flustered. "Oh, Sarah, I seem to have misplaced my glass in all the excitement," she murmured, picking up the flute Jessica had just moved, my original flute. Before I could react, before the warning forming in my brain could translate into words, Helen took a large, celebratory sip. The change was instantaneous and horrific. Helen's eyes widened in shock, her hand flew to her throat. She made a choking sound, her face turning an alarming shade of red, then ghostly pale. She staggered, clutching the table edge, knocking over a water glass before collapsing onto the floor. Screams erupted. The music screeched to a halt. People rushed forward. Michael looked stunned. Jessica's face was a mask of horror, but underneath, for a split second, I saw something else flicker in her eyes. Not concern. Not shock. Calculation. My blood ran cold. I knelt beside Helen, others already performing CPR. Paramedics arrived within minutes, the festive ballroom transformed into an emergency room. As they wheeled Helen out on a stretcher, Jessica sobbed hysterically into Michael's shoulder. It looked convincing. But I saw her eyes dart towards me, just for a second, checking my reaction. She hadn't expected her own mother to be the victim. She'd meant that poisoned champagne for me. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. My son, my daughter-in-law, the people I loved most, had tried to kill me at my own retirement party. The glitter of the ballroom seemed obscene now. The laughter and applause echoing like mockery. The $23 million wasn't a reward, it was a motive. In that moment, amidst the chaos and fear, something inside me shifted. The shock, the hurt, the betrayal, it didn't break me. It forged something new. The businesswoman, the strategist, the survivor I'd been my whole career, took over. The grief would come later. Right now, I needed clarity. I needed a plan. They thought I was a vulnerable old woman, easily disposed of. They had underestimated Sarah Wilson. The game wasn't over, it had just begun. At the hospital, the news was grim but hopeful. Helen had suffered a severe reaction, but the doctors stabilized her. They spoke of toxins, of needing further tests. Jessica played the distraught daughter perfectly, pacing the waiting room, accepting condolences, her eyes red-rimmed. Michael hovered beside her, looking genuinely bewildered. Perhaps he wasn't in on the poisoning itself, just the broader plan. Or maybe he was a better actor than I gave him credit for. I feigned shock and confusion, allowing them to see the grieving, slightly befuddled retiree they expected. I just don't understand, I murmured to Michael. 1 minute we were toasting, the next. I let my voice trail off. Watching his reaction, he patted my arm awkwardly. It must have been something she ate. Mom, a sudden allergy. He avoided my eyes. That night, back in my empty house, the silence was deafening. The leftover party platters in the fridge seemed grotesque. I poured myself a stiff drink, bourbon, neat, and sat in my study. The room where I'd built my empire, call by call, contract by contract, the strategist took over. Motive money. Obviously. But why the desperation? Michael worked in marketing, a vaguely defined role at a tech company. Jessica dabbled in interior design, mostly redecorating their own lavish home. Their lifestyle always seemed aspirational. Expensive cars, designer clothes, exotic vacations showcased relentlessly on social media. How did they afford it? I'd helped, of course. A down payment on their house, generous gifts, covering Emma's private school tuition. But this? Attempted murder suggested a level of desperation far beyond keeping up appearances. My first call the next morning was to David Chen, my attorney for 30 years. David was sharp, discreet, and fiercely loyal. Sarah. What's wrong? You sound, David, I need you urgently. And I need absolute confidentiality. I met him at his office, bypassing the reception area, using his private entrance. I laid out the events of the party, the switched glass, Helen's collapse, my suspicions. David listened intently, his expression hardening. Attempted poisoning, he stated flatly. At your retirement party. By your daughter-in-law. I believe so. And I suspect Michael is involved, at least in wanting me out of the way. Motive. The money. My estate. They must be in serious financial trouble. We need proof, Sarah. Suspicion isn't enough. Hire the best private investigator you know, David. I want everything. Financial records, debts, communications. Dig deep. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. And Sarah, David leaned forward, his voice urgent. Update your will. Immediately. And your power of attorney documents. Medical directives. Everything. If they tried this once, they'll try again. I finished, I know. While the investigator, a former FBI agent named Marcus Thorne, began his work, I focused on legal fortifications. David drafted a new will. My estate, previously destined primarily for Michael, was now restructured. A significant portion would go into a trust for Emma, managed by an independent trustee until she turned 30. Substantial donations were earmarked for charities supporting women in business. Michael would receive a drastically reduced, almost symbolic, inheritance contingent on certain conditions. Jessica, nothing. Explicitly disinherited. We also revoked all existing power of attorney documents naming Michael or Jessica and appointed David and my sister, Carol, as joint agents. A living will and healthcare directive reinforced my wishes, making it clear I wanted all measures taken to prolong my life, directly countering any narrative they might try to spin later about respecting my supposed wishes. For non-intervention. Signing those documents felt like donning armor. Marcus Thorne worked quickly. Within a week, the preliminary report landed on David's desk. It was worse than I imagined. Michael and Jessica were drowning in debt. Over $300,000 spread across high-interest credit cards, personal loans, and defaults on car payments. Michael's marketing job was precarious. He'd received warnings about performance. Jessica's design business barely broke even, mostly serving friends who paid late, if at all. Their lavish lifestyle was a facade built on borrowed money and, increasingly, my generosity. Then came the kicker. Marcus uncovered a recently issued life insurance policy. Jessica had taken out a $2 million policy on me 6 months prior, naming herself as the sole beneficiary. The premiums were exorbitant, paid for, Marcus suspected, with money I'd given them for home renovations. They weren't just trying to get the inheritance faster, Sarah, David said grimly. They were planning to cash in on your death twice. The cold resolve inside me solidified into ice. This wasn't just about greed, it was predatory. The next phase of their plan became clear when Michael approached me a few days later, his face etched with forced concern. "Mum, we've been worried about you living alone in that big house since the party incident. It was such a shock." "I'm fine, Michael. Just processing. We found this wonderful retirement community," Jessica chimed in, joining the conversation with perfect timing. She handed me a glossy brochure. Sunset Manor. It's beautiful. Independent living, but with support if you ever need it. Security, activities, you wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Sunset Manor. The name echoed Marcus's report. He'd discovered emails between Jessica and the facility director. They'd already put down a deposit toward a specific unit. "We think it would be safer for you, Mom," Michael continued. "Less stress. We could handle selling the house, managing your finances, just take care of everything. You'd need power of attorney, of course," Jessica added, almost as an afterthought. "Just to handle the bills and investments while you settle in." There it was. The full picture. Move me, isolate me, gain control of the money. The poisoning was likely planner, a quicker route. With that failed, they pivoted to Plan B. They'd likely find a compliant doctor. Marcus was already investigating a doctor. Richard Steinberg, a geriatric psychiatrist known for providing convenient competency evaluations for families seeking guardianship. Declare me incompetent, manage my $23 million fortune into their own pockets. It sounds lovely, I said, forcing a fragile smile. Let me think about it. I needed more time. More evidence. Marcus suggested installing discrete security cameras in my home. Audio and video. Perfectly legal on my own property. Let them talk, he advised. Desperate people get careless. The cameras went in the following week. Tiny lenses hidden in smoke detectors, bookshelves, kitchen appliances. The feed streamed directly to a secure server monitored by Marcus. I continued playing the slightly shaken, grieving widow, considering their thoughtful suggestion about Sunset Manor. They increased the pressure. Daily calls. Visits with more brochures, testimonials from happy residents likely fabricated. They stressed the dangers of living alone, subtly mentioning my age, my recent shock. Mom, we just want what's best for you, Michael insisted. Think how much easier life would be, Jessica purred. Then, one evening, the cameras captured the conversation I needed. They were in my kitchen, believing I was upstairs resting. She's taking too long, Jessica hissed. Steinberg is expecting our call. If we don't get that power of attorney signed soon. I know, Michael snapped back. But pushing too hard might make her suspicious. After the incident, at the party, we need to be careful. Careful. Michael Costellano called again. He wants his $50,000 by Friday. Where are we going to get that if she doesn't sign? Maybe the Sunset Manor deposit wasn't the best use of we needed to secure the unit. Once she's in, we control everything. The house sale alone will cover Costellano and the credit cards. What if she changes the will first? Michael's voice was laced with panic. She won't. She trusts us. She thinks we're worried about her. Jessica's laugh was chilling. She has no idea. Marcus sent me the clip. Listening to it, the ice in my veins turned to steel. They had no idea I had no idea. They were the ones walking into a trap. It was time to spring it. The plan required careful orchestration. David advised against immediate confrontation. Let them dig their own graves deeper, Sarah. We have the recording, the financials, the insurance policy. Let's gather irrefutable proof of intent for the authorities. I agreed but added my own twist. I wanted them exposed not just legally, but socially. Their carefully curated image needed dismantling. I arranged a family meeting at my house. Michael, Jessica, my sister Carol, and my niece Emily. I framed it as needing support to discuss my future, playing directly into their narrative. Before the meeting, David and Marcus prepared a comprehensive evidence package, financial statements, the insurance policy documentation, screenshots of Jessica's emails with Sunset Manor and inquiries to Dr. Steinberg, timelines, and, crucially, transcripts and audio clips from the hidden cameras. A copy was securely delivered to Carol. Beforehand, I trusted my sister implicitly. The meeting started predictably. Michael and Jessica expressed loving concern, gently steering the conversation towards Sunset Manor and the necessity of them managing my affairs. Mom, it's just too much for you alone, Michael said earnestly. We worry constantly. And the house, Jessica added softly. So many memories, perhaps too many? A fresh start might be good. Carol listened patiently, her expression neutral. Emily shifted uncomfortably. She'd always been wary of Jessica. I appreciate your concern, I began, keeping my voice deliberately frail. And I have given Sunset Manor considerable thought. Jessica leaned forward, sensing victory. But first, I continued, there are some discrepancies I need help understanding. I slid a copy of the life insurance policy across the table. $2 million. Jessica, dear, when did I agree to this? And naming you the sole beneficiary seems unusual. Jessica's face paled. Michael stuttered, Mom, that must be some kind of mistake, paperwork error. Perhaps, I said smoothly, and these are mails with Dr. Steinberg about competency evaluations. I wasn't aware I needed one. The colour drained completely from Jessica's face. Michael looked physically ill. And Michael, I turned to my son, your debts over $300,000. How did you plan to manage those while also managing my estate? The room fell silent. Carol Conley placed her copy of the evidence binder on the table. I believe, she said, her voice cutting through the tension, that my sister deserves an explanation. Jessica lunged for the papers, but Carol was faster, holding them firmly. It's not what it looks like, Jessica shrieked. Your mother is confused. She's imagining things. Am I asked quietly. I gestured towards the bookshelf where one of Marcus's cameras was hidden. Perhaps we should review the recordings from the kitchen last Tuesday? That broke them. Michael slumped in his chair, head in his hands. Jessica stared at me, hatred blazing in her eyes. You spied on us. I protected myself. I corrected. After someone tried to poison me at my own retirement party, Carol gasped. Emily looked horrified. Poison, yes, I confirmed. Meeting Jessica's glare, champagne, though Helen unfortunately intercepted it. Jessica finally snapped. Years of suppressed resentment, greed, and panic erupted. You deserved it, she screamed, lunging across the table towards me. You always had everything. Flaunting your money, controlling our lives, we just wanted what was rightfully ours. Michael tried to pull her back, but she fought him off. Her carefully crafted facade shattered, revealing the desperate, venomous person underneath. Carol Conley dialed her phone. Yes, operator. I need the police at 14 Willow Lane. Assault in progress, and she added, looking directly at Jessica, possible attempted homicide. The arrival of the police was almost anticlimactic. Jessica, hysterical and incoherent, resisted briefly before being handcuffed. Michael, completely broken, confessed everything, the debts. The plan to declare me incompetent. His suspicion but willful ignorance about the poisoning attempt, he admitted Jessica had become obsessed with inheriting my money quickly. Jessica was arrested for attempted murder of Helen, technically due to the switched glass, though her intent towards me was clear and conspiracy. Michael, after cooperating, was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory after the fact. Helen, thankfully, made a full recovery, though the shock of her daughter's actions took a heavy toll. I visited her, shared the evidence. The pain in her eyes was profound. But she thanked me for uncovering the truth. However devastating, she testified against Jessica at the trial. The trials were swift. The evidence, financial records, insurance policy, and mails, Dr. Steinberg's deposition admitting Jessica pressured him for a predetermined evaluation. And the damning hidden camera recordings was overwhelming. Jessica's defense tried painting her as a desperate housewife manipulated by circumstance. The jury didn't buy it, guilty of attempted murder and conspiracy, sentenced to 15 years. Michael pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud, receiving a lighter sentence of 5 years probation and mandatory financial counseling. Partly due to his cooperation and Helen's plea for leniency for her son-in-law. The fallout was messy. Friends took sides, gossip columns had a field day, but through it all, I felt a sense of quiet vindication. Justice, not revenge. Restoration, not retribution. My life settled into a new rhythm. I sold the large house, finding its memories tainted. I moved into a beautiful condo overlooking the city, secure, manageable, and entirely mine. I traveled, reconnected with old friends, volunteered with the charities named in my new trust. Most importantly, I focused on Emma. With Michael on probation and Jessica incarcerated, I became her primary guardian, a role I embraced wholeheartedly. Shielding her from the ugliness, teaching her the values her parents had discarded: integrity, hard work, empathy. We visited Jessica occasionally. The prison visits were difficult, strained. Jessica oscillated between remorse and resentment. Healing, if it ever came, would be a long, arduous process. I established strong legal and financial safeguards around Emma's trust, ensuring her future was protected from any lingering greed or manipulation from her parents upon their eventual release. I attended therapy myself, processing the trauma of the betrayal. Looking back, the retirement party wasn't an ending, but a violent, necessary beginning. It forced me to confront the toxic dynamics I'd enabled, to reclaim my power, to redefine my life on my own terms. I learned that resilience isn't about avoiding hardship, but about how you navigate it. At 70, I wasn't just a retiree, I was a survivor, building a new legacy, one based not just on financial success, but on strength, integrity, and the quiet dignity of a life reclaimed. Emma held my hand as we walked through the park, her small fingers trusting in mine. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt hopeful. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.